at Worlds.
Thank you very much, guys, as I'm joined by the AD carry Imp after LGD finally securing that first victory. And receiving the applause from the guys here as well. Imp, in this game, you guys played phenomenally. You honestly played like we had expected LGD to play. What made it finally come out in this game?
임프 선수 일단 첫 승리를 축하드리고요. 오랜만에 같이 인터뷰하네요. LGD가 이제 본인의 경기력을 보여줄 때까지 너무 많은 시간이 걸렸는데 많은 사람들이 예상한 그런 LGD의 그런 탑 클래스 경기력. 근데 왜 이렇게 많은 시간 동안 고생하다가 이렇게 첫 승리 거뒀는지 좀 말씀해 주세요.
저희가 그 중국에서 경기를 치를 때도 그 정규 리그에는 한 6등, 5등으로 끝내놓고 나머지 남은 거에 이제 플레이오프 시작돼서 천천히 올라가는 슬로우 스타터라는 이름이 있었거든요. 솔직히 이런 걸 변명으로 하기엔 좀 뭐하고 준비 안 했는데 이제 와서 열심히 하니까 그래도 지금이나마 잘 하게 될 수 있는 것 같아요. 하게 된 것 같아요.
Even back in China, we were called a very slow starter. We would do like 5th or 6th place during regular season and climb up that playoff. So I know it's a bad excuse, but I think that also worked here. Like we didn't prepare as well during the very first week. But yeah, I think we're a very slow start at that kind of point.
A bit too slow of a start. And well, Imp, honestly, I had expected to interview you a couple of times throughout the tournament. And I want to go back to a video we saw of you before the tournament where you said, I hope that I won't be the one crying this time. And then today we saw you saying, it's up to the heavens. It strikes me as a very non-Imp thing to say for a world champion. Where did that come from?
사실 저희는 인투 선수를 좀 더 자주 인터뷰할 줄 알았는데 이번 대회 도중에 좀 더 시간 돌리자면 대회 전에 이제 사전 인터뷰 영상에서 인프 선수가 이번 대회 동안 내가 안 울었으면 좋겠다는 얘기를 했었고 어제 그러니까 이번 또 인터뷰에서도 하늘에 모든 걸 맡기겠다라고 얘기를 했었는데 사실 인프 선수다운 발언이 아니한테 약한 모습이고 월챔 우승자 출신이라고 하기에는 되게 약한 모습인데 왜 그런 멘트를 하셨는지 좀 말씀해 주세요.
제가 제 실력에 대해 잘하니까 그런 것 같아요. 제 실력에 대해 자신감이 없어가지고 그랬던 것 같아요.
I think it came from lack of my own confidence, my performance.
Is that something you think you can build up again looking at next year? And what will it take?
내년에는 그러면 어떻게 하면 다시 그런 자신감을 다시 쌓아갈 수 있을지 좀 계획을 얘기해 주세요.
제가 한국 팀이랑만 하면 너무 약해지는 것 같은데 한국 팀 원딜이랑 안 하면 제가 잘할 것 같아요.
I think as long as I avoid playing against Korean teams and Korean ADCs, I'll be okay.
All right, we'll see that happens. Finally, though, I do want to get a little more information out of you. Who do you think, seeing how you won't have to play any of them anymore, are the #1 and #2 team in the tournament right now, and why?
그럼 마지막 질문으로 이제 더 이상 대회에 이제 출전하지 않으시니까 인프 선수는 객관적인 그 평가를 했을 때 지금 대회에서 가장 강한 두 팀이 어디를 생각되는지 말씀해 주세요.
저희 팀 말하면 SKT랑 가장 강한 두 팀은 SKT랑 쿠 타이거즈요.
SKT and the Crew Tigers, still rooting for those Korean teams. Well, thank you very much. Awesome to talk to you as always. Imp, now guys, back to the desk.
Thank you, Shocks. LGD finding their first win there. I think most importantly, we have to note what Jat pointed out is that Spawn over here jumps off of the LGD bandwagon, and then LGD decides to run him over with it.
And then they reversed a couple of times as well. Like, that was a very heavy hit, but thank goodness for LGD. Like, they went back to their guns. PWL literally picked TBQ up, took him to the mid lane, got Godby the kill, and they ran their split pushing style. And one thing that I will point out about this team, they haven't had a good Worlds, but their allocation of farm that game, you saw that every single carrier on the team got equal amount of farm. This is what the team was famous for in China, because you see eventually Niels has to fall behind because they can only give farm to two people, the two split pushers that are going up against Flame and Godby, and then Imp just runs over the game. It was really good to watch, but in saying that, it's way too late and Origen really had nothing to play for.
Yeah, this was them picking up those side waves and having that wave manipulation on those carries, but also the skirmishes, the diving, very heavy. PYL got a ton of action that game, and he was even playing Janna. He's not playing this type of dive-in champion. And we saw them grouping up very early sometimes, and they were playing around the Diana, and I really, really like that. They unlocked Godv, and then he became this gigantic threat.
And PYL was famous for Janna. He was the first Chinese support that people really gave credit to Janna for. They're known as heavy engaged. He's a great disengaged support. Where has this been the whole tournament?
Yeah. Unfortunately, too little, too late. Hasn't been here for the tournament. Want to hit Origen real quickly, Yamato, because as was mentioned, they've got to hop right back onto stage, go up against KT. At this point now, with that loss, it's win or lose first or second place. They can't force a tiebreaker now because of that loss. So mentality-wise, you've only got 15 minutes as a coach. What are you stepping up on the stage? What's Hermit telling them right now to make sure that they can get back in line for a win against KT?
I'm pretty sure they prepared for KT already, like more heavily than they did for LGD, because they couldn't really, I think they had low expectations of LGD, and also on top of that, the KT game would be the deciding game, no matter what, if they won this game or not. So in the end, I feel coming into the game against KT, like in this game, I think Origen's way of, when they fall behind, I feel like they struggle, because in most games that they've had like these advantages in their game, they find it easy to transition it, especially with the Kalista. But the Graves came in, and it kind of is a good matchup against the Kalista, which was very interesting to see come in.
Now, Spawn, big thing that was pointed out as well was the fact that Soaz was taken off of a carry, especially after they had seen that the Olaf was going to be going top lane. Do we expect him to fall back onto something that he's a little bit more pressure on?
100%. I think that the triple threat unlocks Niels, who's the most important member for me on this Origen roster. And Mithy actually does a very good job of starting the fights and then disengaging when he needs to. So they have enough out of that position for me in the support to really get it done. I expect them to play much more aggressive triple threat style.
We'll have a little more time to talk about that game on the other side of the break. Earlier, we opened up our expertise to you with the hashtag AskTheDesk. So let's turn to Twitter and see what you want to know. First up, at Keegan Holm writes, will the amount of champion diversity in champion picks thin out later on in the tournament? An important statistic to note. To this point in time, there have been 68 unique champions picked. That's compared to 59 across the entirety of Worlds last year. So we already have a more diverse Worlds than last year. But how do you guys expect this to trend?
Well, that's also half of the champions in League of Legends, exactly. So I feel like this is going to trend as we get into quarters. There's going to be less teams, less strategies all over the place. And I feel like we'll see a meta kind of settle in. Maybe it'll be like, Tom Kench this game, Tom Kench that game, right? So I feel like we'll see less and less of that as time goes on.
Like personally, I feel like, as you said, the meta will settle simply because everyone will take ideas from the teams that have drafted properly. But I still feel like the teams, for example, Ku Tigers, I feel like a team like Ku Tigers have saved a lot of things coming into the quarters. So I'm expecting some picks, maybe a Soraka, maybe people play more Veigar, something in that kind of taste.
Yeah, I think there are a couple left. I look at Zillion, I look at maybe even an Ezreal or a Corki. They're the ones to me that haven't been played yet and can potentially make it, but I think that we're starting to get towards the bottom of that barrel.
All right, well, on the topic of the World's meta, Je suis Pepe Le Pew asks, what is the best mid-late game strategy to combat double or even triple TP comps? Are we going to see any triple TP comps? He knows something we don't know. He knows something.
It's like in the late game, like teleport as a summoner scales very, very hard, because if you fall behind with the teleport, it kind of shows that you struggle, as in the game against Origen LGD. But if you fall, like if you come out ahead with TP, of course it looks good. But what I want teams to do is do the TSM approach. Go with champions that have stuns, because in the mid lane, if you're going with the TP, they're going to lack the cleanse. Annie is good against the Syndra and pressure that mid lane early on.
So we actually had a pretty smart top laner in the OPL that did something really cool, which is he gets his support to start a Banner of Command minion very far back, and because it's a lot of mid laners, you burn the top laner teleport, and then the mid laner can't actually deal with the Banner of Command minion, and it runs over the base. So I'm expecting teams to itemize a little bit better against mid laners that start this summoner spell by using an item like Banner of Command to try and combat the waves.
Yeah, so the question is about mid and late game, but I also want to cover early game too. So late game and mid game, I would pick hard engaged type champions so that you can force team fights on the people who aren't there. When people are saying go to the source of a teleport, sometimes it's better to just engage on the people and try to blow people up that aren't with the teleport. But during the early game as a jungler, I like to go towards the mid lane. I like to go towards the person who doesn't have that defensive summoner, like the Orianna that we've been seeing. Blow them up, take a support and a jungler, go towards that lane, shut them down, And that's how you deal with Twisted Fates as well. You try to get them early, but then you also try to get to places before them as well. So that's how you combat that in the early game, and I think that's a big part to snowball it, because if the TP gets ahead, then you can't split push with multiple people if they're ahead against you, so it becomes a big problem.
Fair enough. Well, we'll see if any of the teams decide to take the expert advice on this desk. We need to take a quick break, but the battle in pairs continues with Origen versus KT Rolster. We'll be right back with more Worlds in just a moment.
The amount of wave participation in the crowd is at least like 95%.
He's slicing. Maelstrom cannot stop Flame, and Imp coming in off the wing. And nice collateral damage, but there's the Wombo back in. They are now going to take down Imp. Here comes the TP from Soaz. Do they take down Imp? That's the unstoppable force that's required to do so. But here comes the Command Protect. Shockwave actually pulls him perfectly away, but he gets hit by the undertow. Amazing, doesn't get the dodge in. Both sides coming from LGD. One goes down. That's actually two already for OG. His amazing heads for the hills. Midi makes the right choice, and he puts himself in base, but it's also in range of Godby. He was just waiting to see where the hamster went. LGD finds themselves a win, and it will be over Origen.